Welcome back to Boys and Ghouls Film Review, folks. I'm your host, Sarah Stephenson. This is my co-host, Mike Stephenson.
Hi, guys.
And tonight we will be reviewing that
Classic,
The Blob, that was released in 1958.
Yeah, this is the original one with
Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen in it. There's a later one done in 1980 something, rather than 1988, I think.
1988, yeah.
88, yeah. And there was some talk about doing another remake in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
but I think that died.
Yeah, I think it was Rob Zombie who was going to do it.
Yeah, but he dropped out of the
He
project,
dropped out on it.
and somebody else was going to pick it up and run with it. But I haven't seen it reach the light of the day, and I can't find.
Although I do wonder what it'd be like if Rob Zombie did do it eventually.
There'd be naked women running all over the place, and
I don't know.
sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and all the other good things.
I would like to see what idea he would have sprung.
Rod Zombie got some interesting ideas about.
Considering that at this very moment he's looking at making the Munster,
the Monsters.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
a movie out of that.
It's
they're already
probably a little bit past its time. But I'll see what
he's
happens.
already they're recreating the old Munster house, and I don't know
But
who.
Only Fred Gwynne could play Herman, honestly.
True.
And what Al Lewis was Grandpa, and they made the role. Yeah, put somebody else in the clothes doesn't quite make it. It's sort of like that Mockingbird Lane one. What was that called?
1313 Mockingbird Lane.
And that was a pilot for a TV show which didn't take off, and it was done good. And what happened? It didn't go anywhere. So yeah, I'm going to get a dust off a tired old TV program, sitcom, whatever, and try to make it work again. I wonder where they get their ideas from. They had something really, really good that didn't take off, and they're going to get something which is past its use-by date. They're going to try to bring it back to life. I don't understand it.
They also made a sequel to this Blob movie that was done in 1972.
And that was Beware the Blob or Son of the Blob or whatever. Different names. Yeah. And that was a bit sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of. It wasn't as serious as the first movie.
Yeah, and finally on this chopping block, that came out just the same year as the 1988 Blob, the Killer Clowns from Outer Space came out at the same time, Mike, and they used a similar story from the Blob, or similar characteristics
I was going to
from
mention
the
that
Blob.
later on, that I think they said they bought a couple of things. I think they got the script and took out the Blob bit, put the clown bits in, and just moulded the story bit to suit the clown situation.
Yeah, in other words, poking fun out of the old 1950s movies in general.
Yeah, but the point is that the Killer Clowns from Outer Space was supposed to be an independent script.
True.
The policeman there,
His
called
name was Dave.
the same as the other guys, and had a good cop and a bad cop situation. They had teenagers in at the beginning of the movie, yada yada,
and one
blah, blah, blah,
and one boring cop who acts so hateful to all the teens in general.
It was too much of the same movie, and I think, come on, get a grip. You pretty much rewrote the first movie.
Yeah, I think that throughout the movies, they always have a good cop, bad cop in either sci-fi or horror, and most of the time they don't believe the kids, and then once halfway through or wait to the end, they then believe them, or they get killed off by the creatures.
Bearing in mind, this was not an A movie, this is the B movie.
Right.
It was made for the drive-in circuits. Yeah. Back in those days, back in the 50s, the car culture and the driving culture was pretty strong, and it was pretty much made for a drive-in teenage audience.
Yeah, and for a B at the time, it was pretty good, and it did get...
It was done really on a skinny budget, and I made a monster.
And it made... Yeah, exactly. Monster.
A lot of money. Now, this is a sci-fi horror film. It was not intended to be a comedy. Okay? So, having said that, produced by a guy called Jack Harris, directed by Irvin Yayworth, story by Irving Milgate, written by Kay Lineker and Theodore Simonson. I think it's the right pronunciation of the name.
Yeah.
Now, it was made to go as a double feature with I Married a Monster from Outer Space.
Heard of that one.
That's a good movie. I saw that one. Some of my friends think that their wives are like that. Anyway, moving right along. Obviously, Sarah's going to tell you the story, but I won't tell you
just
too much.
mention some of the characters.
Well, I'm going to in a minute. I'm talking. But you do it to me all the time, don't you? You talk over me when I'm doing your bit, and I'm supposed to shut up when you're talking? Will you stop doing that? Right, thank you. All right. Okay, now I was going to say, a bit here about...
just meant folks.
Oh, Lord. Jesus, hit me again. Now, a bit about the thingy-wingy, the antagonist, the creature, so I won't talk about that. I'll move on to budget. Budget was $110,000 back in those days, I believe, and it boxed office at $4 million. Now, that's a really, really good return on money, despite what the reviewers said. Which I'll talk about the reviewers later on. Now, insofar as the actors, there's a lot of actors because I had a lot of bit actors and people running around and ever decreasing circles, but I'll go through the main ones. Steve McQueen plays Steve Andrews, teenage boy who's just going on 28. Well, he was 28 when he did the movie.
And he's supposed to be playing a teenager kid.
Yeah, still in high school. Anita Corso or Corsote, or I think it's Corso, plays Jane Martin. That's the girlfriend, and she's a teenage girl going 25. Earl Rowe plays Lieutenant Dave Barton. He's the sort of good cop who tolerates the kids and tries to be fair and with them and everything.
Yeah, while the Burt one is a total douchebag.
Yes, I was going to get on to Jim Burt later on. Now, there's an old joker in the movie who gets killed off by the monster early in the piece. His name's Olin Howlin, Howlin. He plays Barney, the old man. Now, he was a bit actor in so many movies through his life. This was his last movie. He died the following year. But if anyone has ever seen the sci-fi called Them, about the giant ants, he's a crazy guy in the hospital bed saying, I want to go in the army, give me the booze, and that sort of stuff. That is the same guy. He just did about a couple of years older. But that was done about 3 or 4 years. I think that was done in 1954, if my memory serves me correctly. This one's done in 58, and he died in 59. So, I won't say my thoughts about his family. It's been a couple of years now.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Mike, I was just thinking, when they did Killer Clowns, do you think that the reason they changed it was because another studio was doing the Blob and they thought if they did the Blob at the same time, they would get into big trouble?
No, I think someone grabbed the script and said, hey, I think I can rehash this and make another movie out of it. That's all it is. Now, Stephen Chase plays Dr. Hallen, who tries to help the old guy, and he gets eaten by the monster as well. And John Benson plays Sergeant Jim Burt, who hates teenagers because, teenage kid, male, female, whatever, driving a car on the highway somewhere or other, T-boned or whatever his wife's car. Now, I don't know whether his wife died or anything else. They just said there was an accident. So I don't know whether he's very, very upset about his wife going or just the fact that he had to pay for repairs on the car. Now, I won't talk about all the other people. There's lots of other people in it.
Let's just focus on those few people. And
they're the main
while
ones.
most of them deal with a lot of teen kids, but I'll be very boring you guys to death by who's whom in this. So I'll just stick to...
I couldn't find the dog's name.
So I'll stick to Steve, Jane, and Dave, Lieutenant Dave.
They're the main ones, really.
So I'll just stick
on the Blob.
to
the Blob.
the
Blob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll begin the story.
Hey, the Blob didn't have any credits.
No, it didn't.
The Blob must have played itself.
Okay. Anyway, so the story begins in Lover's Lane, where Steve and Jane are slurping and kissing and getting down to business. It's so weird. Throughout these movies, you hear about Lover's Lane, and yet we only see a little bit until in the 1950s, and then we find out much later in the 90s what
Then
they're
we found out what they're really up to.
Well, I guess it's because the movies, they would not allow us to see more than that.
The censorship board would have killed them if they actually showed them what they're really trying to get up to.
Yeah, getting undressed and doing the
No, they're not doing the hunker chunker in the car or anything. No.
I seem to remember, I think George Lazenby said he did the, you know what, in a car and all that stuff.
Well, if you got a big car, it's okay. But get a little piss-farty car. It's really awkward. You got your feet dangling out the window and everything. It's not comfortable.
So, anyway, they then see something coming out of the sky. And at first they wanted to go and check it out. And one of the an old hermit, the old guy we mentioned, Bernie, whatever his name is,
Barney.
Barney, sorry guys.
I mean, the old man.
So Barney, he calms down the dog, tells him to stay inside the house while he goes and investigates.
And he finds this little meteor thing.
Yeah, encrusted in a crust, and he pokes it, and then cracks open, and inside is a weird substance. He then picks at it with a stick, and to quote a line that me and Mike were saying last night, don't poke at it, you know that stuff. Sounds like poking a zit or something.
Don't pick on it, don't pick it.
And then eventually it slivers up the stick and then
onto his arm,
grabs onto his arm.
Hand.
And then he starts yelling,
It's starting to dissolve his hand. That would really hurt. It's like putting your hand in a bowl of acid or something.
Yeah, he then runs and he gets nearly...
Gets down to the road.
Gets down to the road and nearly gets run over by Steve.
What's his name? Steve and Jane.
Yeah.
Because they were chasing the meteor. They wanted to find it and they couldn't find it, but they're up in the same area.
Yeah, so they end up taking the man to the doctor who was making plans for the weekend.
He's going away to a conference over the weekend or something.
And he told everyone, which is a very important part of the story, which kind of, well, you'll soon see.
Just roll on.
So, anyway, they take him to the dock and ask him to look after the man. He gave some a sedative.
Because he was in pain.
Yeah. And he, eventually sleeps it off. Or not sleeps it off.
He doesn't. He just goes to sleep,
Yeah. And then the kids were told to go back to his home to see if any of his family may be worried about him.
Yeah. And they went up there and they couldn't find... They found a little dog.
Yeah. Before that, they nearly came close to doing a... What do they call it? They end up nearly having a race with a bunch of other kids.
They had a race with another kid.
And they raced backwards.
He challenged it. He said, I can beat you going backwards. So he said, yeah, okay, well, I won't race you just the way you want. What do you mean? We'll do it backwards.
Yeah, and
wait a minute. And they did a backwards race from one set of traffic lights to the other. And their friendly neighbour policeman sitting in the car there, and if he's back to them, he saw him in the rearview mirror. Yeah. And, of course, he accosted Steve saying... Now, what were you doing? Nothing, officer. I was just...
Yeah, and he says, you're racing and you're doing it backwards. And what shall I charge you with?
Yeah. Well, he's going backwards, so he wasn't going forward. So is it still a moving violation going backwards?
Anyway, moving back along. So we're back to the old man's cabin.
And they found the puppy dog.
They found the dog, and they then plan on taking him... Well, Jane decides to take him to
the old man's going to be in hospital.
Yeah, so they end up heading back to the doctors, and the little creature is now absorbed the poor man, the dead man. Yeah,
he sucked him up, and while this was all going on, the doctor phoned his nurse to come in and give him a hand. Yeah. And then the nurse had been gobbled up by this blob thing.
He also phoned another doctor. I think it was the doctor he planned on driving to this conference thing, but... Yeah. But he wasn't there, so he left a message for him or whatever.
Exactly.
Anyway.
And when he comes back to the room, the nurse is gone, the little old man's gone, and the blob's there.
Well, actually, he asked the nurse to throw some acid onto the blob, and somehow it absorbs the acid. And then
didn't hurt it.
Yeah, and as he's trying to grab a shotgun...
she got gobbled up by the blob.
then gets scared and knocks over one of a lamp and turn the place pitch black.
And then the blob gobbled her up.
Yeah, and he gobbled up the doctor, which Steve, at the time, through the window.
Because he just got back there to report back the doctor.
Yeah, he then goes to the police, and you know what the police... And they meet the policeman, who says, yeah, it's all a prank, yeah.
Yeah, of course, he doesn't believe them.
Yeah.
Although
Dave is there with him, and they decide to go investigate, and they go down there, and they find...
They're rather suspicious circumstances, but Bert still thinks it's a setup.
Yeah. So they go inside the building. Someone else arrives who turns out to be either his cleaner or housekeeper, and she goes on to saying that he was going off to a convention, and sure enough, he was not going to be there, obviously.
Yeah, but they left a message to try contacting him where he was supposed to be staying. Yeah, they couldn't contact him.
And the place was a mess, and then she tells the police guys that he's always leaving the doors unlocked, stuff like that.
Yes, he's already warned him so many times before, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and... So they don't really have any evidence or any...
no proof what's going on. They think
that maybe the place was burglarized or something, or maybe a prank, and which they still don't believe Steve is is capable.
Rude.
Anyway, they call the kids' parents. Each dad arrives, and
one's a school. Jane's dad's a school principal, and I think Steve's dad owns a local. Grocery store mart or grocery mart or something.
Of course, Steve's dad sort of believes him, but Jane, of course, didn't witness the said blob that attacked the doctor, so she can't really.
She's at the front.
She wasn't. Yeah. She can't really confirm to the police that she seen it too. And therefore, the evidence is thrown out.
Well, there's no real proof apart from one person saying, I saw something, and there's no one to corroborate it.
So they say, take the kids home, of course. And later that night, Bert and Jen decide to go out and try to find this creature and stuff like that. Of course, while Jen is stepping out of her house, she meets her little brother. He reminds me a little bit of my nephew.
He's
a little bit.
Cute.
He's adorable.
Our guy's 4, and he loves me.
Yeah, and I love him. I love his little innocent mind. He's so
my
adorable.
Little Mark, he's a good fella.
I love his little cheer.
Anyway, you move right
she
along,
then tells him that if he's a good boy and looks after his mum and dad, she'll bring back a puppy all his own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so she heads off and meets up with Steve, and Steve still feels like he's the least person to believe that something has happened, and this creature that was attached to the old man is now attacked gosh knows how many other people in the neighborhood.
He thinks it's dangerous. Gee.
Yeah. And so they end up getting backup. They got some of the kids who did the drag race with them.
As one would.
Yeah, and told them what's happened and said that we must warn people, yada, yada, yada. And so they tried to warn people, but...
And no one believed them. Gee,
why
am I not surprised?
Jane and Steve, they go search for the old man's dog, and they do find it eventually. But along the way, we see the blob... attacking them or trying to attack them. Eventually, they head into the freezer, and somehow the blob doesn't enter the freezer.
You didn't even say they went to the market.
No, they went into the market.
Which is
see.
Steve's dad's store, which is open, and the cleaner wasn't there.
Yeah, so they ended up inside the fridge, and the blob doesn't somehow go near the fridge.
It doesn't like the cold.
Yeah,
which plays an integral part in the story later on.
Yeah, it slithers away like a snake.
Yeah, it runs backwards.
A snake is scared of a... whatever.
Like water running uphill. Anyway,
they then head out, and of course they're running out of options. So they think of only one thing they can by warning people. They then end up sending out the fire alarms,
air raid,
alarms, sirens,
whatever. Yeah, everything to wake the people up. The townsfolk were really happy about this in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and eventually everyone arrives at his dad's store, and he tells them about the creature, and at first Bert keeps saying this guy is acting, or this is all a prank, but Dave says finally,
There
I
might-
believe them. Or
There
I
might
believe
be some danger here, so go back to your homes. We'll keep you informed via the local radio
Yeah,
station.
and then we hear a scream down the street. Somehow the blob has come inside the movie cinema.
Yeah.
That the same movie cinema where he met up with his
Friends earlier on.
Steve's friends who were going to the movies.
Lucky, hey, he got them out just in time. What are friends for, hey?
Yeah, and of course, this is the famous scene. It's been used like in
It's
several
only movies, so we see the blob
and
come through
has-
the projector windows.
Yeah, and has been used for a number of other things I've noticed over the years.
It has
which
been,
is
yeah,
cool.
it has. Mm.
Yeah, it's a popular scene where we watch the kids running out of the cinema
And the gooey bit coming out the wall.
and the gooey bits coming out of the wall, gross stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Who's got to clean up? Oh,
yeah.
Lord.
So they try to shoot at it and stuff, but it keeps absorbing bullets and
Well,
anything.
Go straight through it. You shoot a jelly and see what happens. It'll just sit there and wobble a bit.
Yeah, anyway, Jane's brother, he comes there and tries to shoot the creature with his cap gun.
Oh, little cute little boy.
And of course, Jane and him and Steve, they try to run inside, what do they call it? Those weird diner
A
things?
diner, yeah. They know what a diner is in America.
Yeah. So they head inside there, and of course, the blob starts going over it. And
Yeah, it's getting big by now. Yes,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
yeah, they then call David then decides to tries to phone inside the diner of
Yeah,
sorts.
and they get a line in.
Yeah, and of course, luckily enough, David leaves the phone off the hook. Otherwise, they would not have got the news.
Yeah, the phone on the hook, and they went to the downstairs to the basement, and they realised
Yeah. Before we get to that, Dave figures that they may drop
some power lines.
a power line on top of the blob in order to probably kill it or
So
something.
Bert, being ex-army, shoots the mounting for the wire on the telegraph pole or the electrical pole.
Yeah.
And the wire falls down onto the blob, goes
Yeah.
crackle, 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 and not a bloody thing happens.
Yeah, and Steve, Jan, and her little brother, and the diner owners are in the basement, and they are running out of time, and they're running out of oxygen.
Yeah, and also because when they set off the electrical thingy on the blob, it started somehow or other. It started the fire inside the diner.
Yeah.
Considering the electricity was outside and couldn't get through the diner.
Yeah, so
there's no explanation how the fire started.
so the owner then takes out a gas,
A CO2,
CO2
fire extinguisher. And CO2's cold.
So he fires out a bit of fire, and then we notice straight away the blob is
Recoiling from it.
Recoiling, and then Steve grabs it, and then he starts spraying out the blob.
And it goes
And
away.
he then figures out
A bit.
the weakness to this blob.
It don't like the cold. You know what? Neither do I.
And soon enough, he shouts up to the phone that's probably still upstairs, and he says to Dave that we need
CO2.
Yeah, so he then calls the fire chief and asks him, do we have any
ain't got a
CO2
few.
type fire extinguishers? And he says he has a few, and he then the principal who was there at the time,
He
says
knows
he
about 20 of
has
them.
20 at the school. So he and a bunch of the boys head down to the school to get them. And of course, at one point, he didn't have the keys on him.
So he picked up a rock, and he broke into his own school.
Yeah.
And all the kids say, "Hey, right, we've always wanted to break windows."
Yeah, so they then head inside. They grab as many extinguishers as they can, and then they head back to the site and start spraying the blob with all their might.
Well, initially around the window of the basement so the people can get out.
Yeah.
Steve, Jane, the diner
owners.
the waitress, and little Danny, the little boy.
Yeah, and eventually, they then get out, and Steve asks, "Is it dead?" And Dave says, "I don't think it will ever be dead
I
because
don't think we can kill it. I think he said at one stage.
He then explains that before that, Dave was actually on the phone to Washington trying to figure out a plan of getting rid of this
They wanted
thing.
to get a Globemaster aeroplane
And
to
blow it
come
up.
there. No.
At one
They were
point-
talking about blowing it up, and he said, no,
yeah.
that won't work.
Because that would spread it fast.
And in the end, he said they run a Globemaster, and we said, take it up to the Antarctic or somewhere or other,
And
dump it in the snow, and it'll just sit there, and
Yeah, and of course,
hopefully it'll stop it.
And of course, Steve adds in at the end, "I just hope the Antarctic stays cold, at least cold enough."
Well, the way it's going at the moment, it won't.
So eventually we watch an airplane drop what remains of the blob onto the Antarctic.
I mean, what remains? The whole lot of the
The
blob.
whole lot of the blob. And it's now there to this day.
Didn't even give us a scarf or a hot water bottle or anything.
And we get the title card, the end, and then it transforms into a question mark. Hint, hint, the end.
See? Oh, wasn't that exciting, folks?
I do think that's an awesome movie, and I do think that I like that in those 1950s movies. That can be so interesting.
But it was a B movie, but to me it was a really good B movie, almost an A movie.
I think it's an A movie in my book. Even though Steve McQueen, he wasn't a big fan of this one.
Actually, it's quite funny when he was asked to do, took up the job. They offered him a low pay but on top of that, once it was released, a percentage of the takings.
Wow.
And he said, "No, I don't think it's going to make any money, so I'll just take $3,000."
Oh no. He's just like that.
And they made this for $110,000, and it made about $4 million to box office, which means he would have had a bucket full of money.
Yeah. Maybe that's why the reason he hates it.
Well, yeah,
because he didn't.
But it was his first major movie. He had been in about 2 or 3 movies before that, only sort of bit roles, and this was his first major role.
So this could have been the reason why he hates it, because he missed out making probably a decent bit of money out of it.
Look, it was not a bad movie. For what it was, I mean, a B movie on a limited budget. Yes, you had a couple little problems with the special effects. Remembering no CGI back in those days, folks. It was purely how they, the DOP, the director of photography, and the special effects guy can actually make things look like it's really happening.
I gotta admit, I do like the. I like the 1950s. It makes me think of Happy Days and American Graffiti a little bit.
Same period, yeah. American Graffiti, Grease, same sort of period. It's really good fun. They've all got the same feel.
Yeah, and I do like it when I think about the drive-in movie theatres. I mean, I do miss those.
I don't know what it's like in America at the moment. We've lost all our drive-in theatres. So there might be the odd one here and there, but I remember growing up, going to the drive-ins there, especially the late night shows, the spook shows as you call them, and watching late night movies and stuff. And
I had a lot of fun in those times when we did that, because we were allowed to bring in our own food and maybe a blanket for cold.
Yeah, snuck in and then pray to the Lord above that it doesn't rain. That's what
I remember one time when we went to our first drive-in movie theatre. It rained, and we had to either had to change the special speaker for something else, because the rain kept spitting into our window.
I think I had an FM receiver we could use. But actually, I remember when I was a kid. All right, no jokes. We had in our local neighbourhood, they had an open air theatre. You had a screen like a drive-in theatre, with seats in front of it. There was walls around it so that people out in the street couldn't see it, but there was no ceiling. So what the problem is, you go in there, pay, and go sit down there in something like a deck chair or whatever, and if it was winter time, you'd really have you rugged up the nines, the coats and jumpers and scarves and stuff. Otherwise, you'd freeze your things off. And in the summertime, you'd probably be plagued by mosquitoes and crap and everything else. It wasn't fun, but that was the only open air theatre I've ever seen. And now, I mean, some of the water parks do that now. They have theatres in the park now where you can go swimming and see an open air screen, but a designated open air theatre I haven't seen.
Anyway, this movie, I do remember years ago I used to watch this with my sister, and she was having a sleepover at this time, and when I first watched The Blob, I was a little scared at first, and I wasn't the only one. I think one of her friends was with us, and she got creeped out by The Blob, and they decided to watch something else. Yeah. I do remember that really well.
Yeah, it was Kate, wasn't it?
Yeah,
young friend Kate. Her idea of a scary movie was Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. And that
not TV series. It was the movie.
Movie? Okay.
Yeah, the comedy. Before the TV series, before Michelle Gellar came on
movie,
board.
Okay, yeah. And that wasn't real. That wasn't that scary, really.
That's true. It was more of a comedy.
Comedy action.
Just a comedy action.
But no, when you get real horror, really shocking, thrilling stuff,
Yeah.
not good for kids.
I wouldn't be surprised if they watched Nightmare on Elm Street. It should probably be really wetting.
Should never sleep again.
We'll never sleep again.
Anyway, let's moving right along here. There's the director, Irvin Yeaworth. This is his second feature film, so this is his second time he directed.
Oh, cool.
So I think he did a good job.
I think so
yeah,
too.
He did.
I like the fact that, just so you guys know, the Blob is actually the first few scenes of the Blob was actually let me see, it was made of it was a weather balloon in the earlier shots, and in the later shots was actually coloured silicone gels. Silicone gel.
Silicone gel. And it was a bit runny, and they'd be able to pour it and then run the film backwards, make it look like it's...
Much later on in the story, they added dye to the Blob to make it look increasingly redder after it consumed
more
victims, which is kind of cool. I think it kind of made it look creepy and bloody and gross.
It wasn't bad actually. I mean, again, it gets back to what I said before. No CGI. They had to make it up as it went along. How can we get this effect? And they had to think outside the square in some ways. I mean, some of it was pretty basic stuff, and the critics were picked on that sort of stuff. But crikey, I'd like to see them do better.
Yeah. Another thing about this, the original title for the movie was going to be the Glob.
The Blob. But there was a book or something of a similar title, and they didn't think they'd do that because there might be a breach of copyright. But it wouldn't have been a breach of copyright because the guy did not invent the name The Glob. It's just the name he used for his book.
It is a very funny name.
But I think The Blob's better.
Yeah. It's more catchy.
Hey, who's seen, what's it? Aliens versus Monster, the cartoon, isn't it? There's a Bob the Blob. Now, he's a nice little blob. Now, it's not Bob the Glob. It just doesn't roll off your tongue, does it?
Yeah. I think that they had it right in the end by calling it the Blob in the end.
They want to call it the Mass or something else. Yeah, the Blob works really good.
I think it works.
The big ball of red silicon. Well, that doesn't work either. No.
Yeah, I kind of admit that. It makes me think of some of Stephen King's much later works they did in the 80s or the 90s, where like that story about the farmer who ends up having
Creep Show 1, I think it was, isn't it? And Stephen King actually played the role, didn't he?
Yeah, and he ends up breaking a meteorite and
some gooey stuff gets on him.
And then starts attaching itself on him.
Well, no, it changes him, and he starts to sprout grass or something out of him, or moss or something, and he turns into swamp creature or something. Really,
I thought it was cool.
But it's rather good. It was something, and I mean, I thought to myself, gee, good movie. Stephen King, don't give up writing, but acting, well, he's not a great actor. But
I do think it was cool. I mean, the idea that instead of the Blob, it's a weird creature that makes him turn to a vegetable.
Yeah.
Well, not vegetable.
I've worked with people like that.
Oh, so let's look at the reviews.
Wait a minute, I'm not finished with my critiques and other bits and pieces and other things like that. Now, I don't normally talk about the music. I don't really care about the music, as long as it's there and makes its presence felt. But this is different. The film has a comedy song, I suppose, for want of a better expression, for its title song. It's called The Blob. Now, and it was written by a young Burt Bacharach and Mac David. And they actually put their heads together and came out with this tune. Wait a minute. There's more to it. Now, it was recorded by some session singers called the Five Blobs. That was the name, the Five Blobs singing the Blob theme song. Actually, it was only one singer, Bernie Nee, overdubbing himself. So it was only one guy singing the Blob as a quintet for when you got five people. So, yeah, it's quite fascinating. But that song ended up on the top 40.
Cool.
Interesting. and it peaked at number 33 on Billboard in November '58. So stranger things have happened. Now what else can we talk about before I go into the reviews? There was another song they were going to use I think it's called Violence or something or other. And that was Violence. And that was going to be the introduction track, the title track. But they wanted to actually make it a bit more comical, make it a bit more lighthearted. So Violence was not used. But later on, a few decades later, they put a compilation album together for the music, and both songs were on that album. Yeah. Now, we talked about the money.
We're done.
Yeah. It was one of the wave of the cheap teen movies released back for the drive-in market. I mentioned that. As a double feature, like I said, I Married Once from Outer Space was the other one. It was re-released. The guy actually had it and originally bought it back and did another double release with another movie called Dinosaurs. It did the double feature trick a bit for a while. Now, reception. All right. What can I say? The audience loved it.
Hooray!
Obviously. And so while audience liked it, the critics were not as kind.
Oh.
No.
Why is it always just one or the other? I'll never know.
You do not make a movie for the reviewers. You make a movie for the paying public. The people who actually take the hard-earned cash out of their purses and wallets and go to the lady or man and buy a ticket and go there to be entertained. I'm sorry. Reviewers, get a grip, get a life.
Yeah.
Now, the review in the New York Times highlighted some of the problems and identified some of the positives. Although Steve McQueen's debut was not one of them.
Oh, brother.
Well, they didn't like his acting in the movie. Maybe if you had an older person doing the review and it's a teen movie, of course not going to like it. You know,
of course, these guys are probably
old
guys who don't know.
Can't get a real job.
They probably their last great review would have been Dracula, or maybe something, or Creature from Black Lagoon, or something like that.
Now, wait a minute. Now, carrying on the same review, I believe, is concentrating on director Irvin Yewith's work. Unfortunately, this picture talks itself to death, even with the blob nibbling away at everybody in sight, and most of his trick effects under the direction of Irvin S. Yewith Jr. look pretty phony.
Well, you are a pretty phony reviewer.
You never look that close at a B-movie as a special effects, honestly. Now, the review continued. On the credit side, there's a credit side. Woo! The camera very snugly frames a small town background, a store, a church, several homes and a theatre. Well, whoopty freaking do. That's what the DOP's supposed to do.
Oh, gosh,
the colour is quite good. The blob rolls around in at least a dozen horrible-looking flavours, including raspberry.
Oh, brother.
This guy is a moron.
He
New York Times, I mean, why did you hire this guy back in those days? I got no idea.
Oh, he probably sucked.
His last bit was, the acting is pretty terrible itself. There is not a single becomingly familiar face in the movie, in the cast. They use fresh faces, that's why.
And if you look closely, the old guy from the beginning, the Herman, he was...
he wasn't a well-known actor. He was a bit actor in movies.
Okay,
maybe not big actor. No name people in the movie.
Okay,
but that's so he picked at the piece for no real reason apart from the fact that he could. Now, Variety had a similar reaction. See McQueen as the star, gamely giving the old college try, but that the ... Star performers, however, the deluxe colour camera work of Thomas Spaulding and Barton Sloane's special effects. The other guy didn't like the special effects. This guy liked the special effects. Whatever. In a discussion with a biologist, interesting. In a discussion with a biologist, Richard Dawkins, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson stated that among all Hollywood aliens, which were usually disappointing, the Blob was his favourite from a scientific perspective.
Oh, finally, someone with taste.
A scientist. Yeah, there you go.
Someone with taste. At long last, we have someone who has some good input.
And now here it is. And Rotten Tomatoes is at the bottom of the list here for some reason. They actually gave it a reasonably good approval rating.
Oh, good.
It says, in spite of its chortle-worthy premise and dated special effects, of course it was dated, it was done back in the 50s, the Blob remains a prime example of how satisfying a cheesy B-movie monster thrill can be. So say, allowing for the fact it was done in the 50s and that some things you'd allow for the special effects and stuff and the average dialogue and whatever, it was still good. It's a good fun movie and people still liked it.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I guess you were right. I mean, you could be right about those ones that wrote those reviews back in the 1950s. I probably thought their way of thinking their way of thinking what's a good movie is
they want like a Gone with the Wind or
a
something or other,
1930s type
or
rip
Humphrey
of
Bogart
movie.
flick or something,
Or something like that.
Now look, it's like me going to like I'm 67, right? Now it's like me going to a concert with an artist who appeals to anyone under 20. Now, I would go there and say, what's this bloody noise? I'm used to things like the Rolling Stones, The Who, Black Sabbath, really good music. And I really can't come to terms with modern music. That's not because it's bad, it's just not what I'm used to. I just don't like that sort of music. I'm not going to rubbish it and say it's a load of rubbish or crap or anything. It's just that it's not what I'm into.
Yeah, another thing is, how can that reviewer, the first one you were talking about, the one about how he was talking about the director of photography's shooting arrangements.
He's very, very nice, but that's his job.
How could he have... I mean, I didn't even notice what was going on in the background. I didn't really...
He framed the shots nicely.
I didn't even see a church or a...
No, there was probably a church and some other buildings there. If the shots, all he's saying is, the shots are framed nicely. But that's his job.
Yeah.
And if he couldn't do that, he shouldn't be a DOP.
I rather a good DOP to work with than a not so good with DOP. But I don't get their worries. I mean, I like the fact that the Blob looks so believable and real. I mean, something that you never think would exist in this world and came from outer space, and then it starts attacking and starts devouring people. And it doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't even have. It doesn't. Well, it does have a weakness, obviously, the ice. And I like to think that when it was came from outer space, that considering that a lot of people, scientists maybe, say that outside space is the coldest, and I like to think that sort of when it was inside the space rock,
warm,
in that space rock, I think that was probably. It wasn't not an insulator. It was more like it was originally part of the Blob, but then it got frozen and then hardened from being outside of space, and then it became just like a rock. And if this, the Blob stayed frozen, it might have turned into a rock too.
If bypassed our Earth and went to the sun, he would have been fried up.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Very nice. Anyway, let's go to Remakes. Aha. In 1988, a remake of the same name was made and directed by Chuck Russell. Now, wait a minute. In August 2009, it was revealed that musician-turned-director Rob Zombie was working on yet another remake.
Yes, I mentioned that already.
I know, wait a minute. You shut up for once.
And we've discussed
But he later ceased working on the project. Now, in January 2015... he was replaced by Simon West as director of the remake. So there's 6 years difference there. And it was announced that the film would be produced by Richard Saperstein and Brian Whitten together. And that's back in 2015, and I haven't seen anything yet.
Me neither. Unless it went directly to DVD or video.
I've looked I can't find it. So maybe they said, it's too hard.
Or maybe it was just not good enough.
Well, no, yeah.
Or maybe it's still trying to prepare at the right time to release it.
Right.
And sadly enough, it's
been another 6 years.
Yeah, but Mike, I mean, bear in mind, some movies do take, say, so long a period of time to get released. And sometimes
there would at least be a site saying that we are making a movie, hope to release it next year. Yeah. There's nothing there.
Well, some movies do take longer. I mean, look at the King Kong. Peter Jackson took him a long time to get that released.
But sometimes, if it's doing something, sometimes you can find some information.
And some movies, after, say, a good preparation of getting it all post-edited and then and trying to get it released on whatever distributing company you can think of, it probably will take certain number of movies out there to get released properly to the right audience and right time.
But there'd still be something out there, a couple of threads of information. There's just nothing. I think it's just died.
It's just I often think that's what happens sometimes.
I think it's died because it's been another 6 years and there's not one. I can't find one line anywhere. Anywhere. Right. So I don't know.
I would have loved it if Rob Zombie did do it. I mean,
there would have been naked women all over the place. That's not a bad thing necessarily.
I think it'd be kind of cool. I mean, he could add a little bit more more gore in it.
Well, that's another point too.
Which could have been cool. That's one of the things I like about Rob Zombie. He's able to make it gory and stuff and appeal to so many people.
Now, I've got some notes on different influences this movie has had on other movies. And we have mentioned the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Which was, I think, is pretty much a total rip-off of this movie. But there's another thing there. Where is it? In Monster vs. Alien, it's based on, Bob the Blob is based on the Blob. Yeah, that's everything. Hotel Transylvania has Blobby.
I heard that one, obviously.
Yeah, he's in there. And just goes on and on. Yeah, he's popular.
Well, Blob is really a well-known character.
Blobby.
I mean, next to the Creature from Black Lagoon, Dracula, and a number of other
Frankie the Wolfman,
all those other type of creatures.
He's in good company.
He's got the a lot of people would know him really well off the tip of their heads. And he's unlike other alien movies. He's not one that you walk away from, or even forgot in a hurry. I mean, that's the interesting thing. I mean, all other alien movies, some of the alien movies would be either forgotten or something, but this one still is remembered.
Here's something for you. No. And I don't normally go into this sort of stuff either. I found a bit of trivia.
This will be interesting.
In 1965, the Blob, the silicon model thing, what he is, was bought by a film collector, Wes Shank.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I think he bought the Blob, not the movie. And he wrote a book about the making of the Blob.
That's nice.
Considering he had nothing to do with the project, you think he'll get some decent information from the people involved with the project. Wait a minute. Don't say anything here.
Okay, go on.
According to Jeff Charlotte in his book The Family, the Blob was about the creeping horrors of communism, only defeated by freezing it. The Cold War, rich, small, and literal.
Excuse me?
Now, Rudy Nelson, one of the screenwriters for the film, that will be uncredited, has denied many of Charlotte's assertions, saying, what on earth can Charlotte say about the movie that will fill 23 pages, especially when what he thinks he knows is all wrong? That's people wrote. So he wrote a book about the making of without actually checking for anybody.
So he wrote this a long book about the Blob and considers it the fact it's like communism and the Cold War, yada yada. Even though he hasn't bothered to actually watch the movie. Yeah.
So people are writing books about it, and there's two guys there. One's Wes Shank. He wrote a book about it, and according to so and so in his book, The Family, the Blob was why don't these guys actually sit down there and actually talk to people who actually made the movie before actually writing a book? Yeah. Crazy people. Like the old guy, he died after the movie, but a year later.
How can such a moron can exist out there and write such insulting article? Not an article, a book.
These people belong to Flat Earth Society, and I believe the Earth's flat, and blah, blah, that's the way it is. I'm sorry, it's not. When you go and get an airplane or go on a boat and go around the world, you find out it's actually round. Yeah.
I think that the guy, or the guys I should mention, who written the script for the Blob, he was probably just imagining a new alien thing. That will interest people.
You can't have a dinosaur coming to Earth, or popping out of the ground or something.
Most of the time you get your biggest inspirations from life, but I don't think the writer at the time was probably basing his stories off of the Cold War or anything like that.
I know, it's crazy.
It's just a load of Tommy rot.
I know. So but two guys. I mentioned two guys writing a book. It says one bloke wrote a book, and then the other bloke wrote a book in the next line. So I'm not quite sure which one was actually whether they both. It says it was bought by film collector Wes Shank, which I gather was the actual model by the sounds of it. It didn't say the movie who has written the book, and then the next line says this other guy Jeff Charlotte in his book The Family. So I don't know. One of them's an idiot.
Yeah.
Probably the Charlotte guy, maybe.
He probably never watched the movie and probably...
No, he saw the movie, but he put his own preconceived ideas into what it actually meant. Oh, there's some hidden meaning in it. No, it's not.
No.
It's a sci-fi horror made for the kids.
Yeah.
But look at, say, George Orwell wrote Animal Farm. All right? Yeah, you know the cartoon Animal Farm? Before the pigs take over and... Well, the animals took over the farm, and then the pigs gradually took over and started dressing like the human beings and making laws and everything. And it reeked of communism, but it was supposed to be reeking of communism. You see? But this is totally different. This is just a story about an alien coming to Earth and killing people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It doesn't have any ties in with that sort of thing. Certainly some movies do get key elements from certain things, like this sort of stuff.
Freezing up CO2 is like the Cold War. Grow up,
Whether you believe it or not, how else will you defeat a monster from another world?
But do you think about it? Okay, Cold War. Okay, in all these alien movies, it's either going to be heat, cold, or electricity, or something they can actually use locally that defeats them.
Exactly.
So, what are you going to do? Okay, we'll go into the laboratory and try to find a way to do it, and by that time, everyone's dead. So, it's got to be something simple. Freeze it.
Yeah, and something that's right in front of their eyes, and they thought maybe if we use fire or a bomb, it might destroy it.
Bomb will splatter all over the place, have little blobs all over the place, maybe.
Yeah, that's what the Dave said in the movie. He said when he was contacting Washington, telling them to bring a helicopter in to take, not a helicopter, a Globemaster airplane in to send it to the Antarctic. And he said, do not blow it up because that would just
splatter all over the place. They'll never get rid of it.
Yeah, it would make a bigger mess.
It's like termites on a wooden leg,
Could be interesting if they did do it that way, but then it would make a big mess.
Anyway, I'm going to rate it.
Yes, me too.
I like fun B-movies of that period.
Yeah, and maybe they probably weren't taking anything from, it's like, I don't think that they would. Most people would get.
Rated.
I know that, but I was just going to say that some of these guys out there who keep saying there's an explanation of why their movies like
why
this.
Why is it so? Yeah.
Like what?
The meaning of life.
Like why it's like why this movie ends up like this, and maybe some movies may have key elements, like maybe some deal with reality and real life circumstances that may connect to the movie, but other than that, they're not life-threatening or damaging.
Look, these movies are like the old TV and movies of the old westerns. the good guys wear white hats, the naughty guys wear black hats, and they shoot each other, and the guy in the white hat is standing up at the end. That's it, finished.
Right.
Now
you can do your...
now,
Paul.
now, I like good, fun B-movies of that period when they're done well. This fits into that category quite nicely. And despite what that stupid film reviewer from the New York Times or whatever it was said, I think Steve McQueen, in his first lead role, did a fantastic job in this movie.
I agree.
As did, well, you're leading ladies, so I don't know, it seems not too bad, but Steve McQueen was the main actor and he carried it very well. All the characters are believable. You look at the country town, they act like they belong in a country town. That sort of stuff. The teenagers act like teenagers, even though some might be adults. Hello, Steve McQueen was 28. I'm going to give this 9.5, 10. I can't think of any reason to downgrade it.
Me neither.
So I'm going to give it a 10.
I'm going to give it a 10 too.
There you go. Go out, Steve. I know Steve McQueen didn't like the movie. That's maybe because the reviews weren't very good. Steve,
I think
it doesn't matter.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Is he still out there?
No, I'm not sure. But maybe it has something to do with the fact he decided to be paid the amount that he's being asked to be paid by the studio.
You make his choice.
But then when it became such a big smash, he didn't realize. Oh hell! This I could have earned a lot more. Like I could have ended up with a bigger cut.
He could have got 10%, which means he would have got 400,000 or something instead of 3,000.
Yeah, and get distributing money.
But
too.
I don't think Steve McQueen's gone without a dollar during his life. He's made a good career.
He did. He did do Great Escape, the
Papillon,
and the Tower Inferno.
Yeah, he did a lot of good movies.
A lot of other movies.
He showed in a few some westerns, I think, and other things. He's played in a lot of good movies.
And he was in Thomas Crown Affair.
That's a movie I've seen him before. Yeah, Thomas Crown Affair. Yeah, he's been in a lot of good movies.
Yeah,
he's
so
a good
this
actor.
movie hasn't drowned his career or anything like that. It has opened up new roles for him. He's not the handsomest man in the world to me.
That's the whole point. He doesn't look like a Ken or a Barbie. He doesn't look like he came straight out of a plastic mold like some of the other guys do. He looks like a normal guy.
He looks like an ordinary guy, and he pulls it off for any role.
And he's got a good personality. Yeah. He's a good actor.
And I was just thinking this. I was just looking at I was just looking up a previous article just not too long ago about why George A. Romero disliked World War Z, the
World
zombie.
War Z, yeah.
And
I like it.
I found out that he didn't like the fact that Hollywood is putting too much money into zombie movies instead of
any genre.
He likes creativity. He aspires to creativity more than money.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And that's what I've said a few times. It's about the art. It should be about the art, not the money.
Yeah.
And that's why I do like what a lot of the independent people are doing. Because they're trying something
likes the independent people.
Different story, a different style of storytelling. Where the big guys are going, let's churn out the same crap year after year and see if we can get some more dollars out of it. I mean, where's the art? Where is the art? Where is the creativity? I mean, come on, guys, if you make a good movie and put that art and effort into it, you're going to make the dollars.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
What movie would you like to go to? Would you prefer to go to the original screening of the Blob, or would you prefer the modern movie now?
Well,
I'll put this question to you guys out there, and let me know in the comments which do you prefer.
I'd phrase it a different way. What do you prefer? A movie made by an accountant, and bean counter, if you will, or a movie made by people who know how to make a movie?
Yes, so I put this question out to you guys. So I put this question out to all of you guys. Which do you prefer, creativity over money?
Yeah, it's got to be creativity, otherwise the industry will die a sad death.
Yeah, it seems that the industry has been dying slowly, and whenever I think of those special stream sites that where a lot of more and more of those famous filmmakers who have been made their name in this industry have been more and more sending their movies there more than the actual cinemas, which I think is horrible.
No, a lot of cinemas. They've been else. You're out of touch with reality. Last year, a lot of the cinemas are closed, and they couldn't circulate them. They had to release them somewhere. Okay.
True. I just meant that
Otherwise, they'd be sitting on the shelf.
it's just that even the newest stuff that's coming out that was going to probably get released to the movies nowadays. I don't know what's going on these days. I mean, more and more. I look at the cinemas and they don't seem to churn out anything new or something like original story ever.
I know, yeah.
I mean, it's always
the
same stuff. I mean, and I'm not crazy about it because I've seen it all before.
Look, I remember a few years, a couple of decades back, they had several movies, similar theme about a female in America, I believe, marrying a guy from the Middle East, taking the baby back home to the Middle East for a holiday, and then she's going to go and sort of try and get the baby back out of the Middle East, where she has no rights as a mother.
Yeah, I heard about that story.
I think there's more than one movie made on the same topic. Why? One movie would have been sufficient. It's been done. Move on. Find something else. There's lots of good books you can make movies out of. Lots of short stories. Look what Roger Corman did. He went for Edgar Allan Poe books and made some seriously good movies. There are other good books out there, guys. Now, I don't know about you, but I know how to read. I'd like to think some of these producers would know how to read
just
too.
so you guys know, about the point, I'm doing this Attack of the Cat People movie at this. We're coming to an end, finishing it now.
It's in audio post-edit as we speak.
Yeah, and I won't bore you with the details.
Just watch her site.
But it's starting to grow and it's starting to develop and it's putting me on the edge of my seat.
The cat people are having kittens as we speak.
Yeah, I feel like that I think this is going to be a project that's going to really grow on people.
I hope so. It's not a hugely long movie. It's only about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a mini feature, a bit short, but the idea is we didn't want to put any fillers in it. We want to keep it interesting.
Yeah, because I do think I do hate when fillers get so overwhelming and
so let's go and have lunch somewhere and do coffee and stuff. Yeah, it's a very nice day. No, just get into it. Just tell a story.
I mean,
and that's what it is. Anyway, hopefully you'll all like it and see it and give us some great comments.
I'll let you guys know in 4 or 5 weeks' time what the outcome of it is. Okay.
Yeah, so we might have a little premiere here for our local people here, and then you're going to release it somehow on the internet, somehow or other.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out my plans.
How to release it properly.
To the world without any difficulties.
Yeah.
Anyway,
enough
said. So thanks for listening to this latest podcast, everyone. So I hope you guys may check out the Blob and
by the way, I didn't say there's plenty available.
And don't confuse it with the 1980s one or
It's a 1958 Blob.
And do not confuse it with the 1972 one either.
That's okay.
I'm just telling them so they don't get confused.
58, sure. So Amazon, it's available to rent or buy, and there's plenty for sale on eBay. But for both of them, make sure you get the right year. And being an older movie, make sure you don't pick a VHS copy. Because it would have been on VHS as well as, I think there's some VHS ones in eBay, and other places might have some of the old media. But it's on Blu-ray in some areas as well as standard DVD, so you might get a really nice clean copy.
Yeah, so this is worth watching, guys, and it's always good to watch an early Steve McQueen movie.
Yeah.
To know where he got started at.
Yeah. I mean, you got Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, all those guys, they started years ago there, and people forget the early movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even though this movie, it's in a I do think this movie, there's no forgetting it because everyone seems to know it. You know,
Well, it's one of those classics.
It's one of the classics that has never been forgotten.
Yeah, people think about Them as a classic. The Blob's a classic.
I mean, considering the cinema scene is still the most freshest,
or borrowed,
has been used over and over, and it's still people remember it as the Blob.
Actually, I think I've seen it in an advert. You know, when running out of the cinema, I think I saw an advert one year.
Yeah, and I think it was in a documentary for Alice Cooper.
Yeah, it was. T.S. Super Duper Alice Cooper, something or other.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
And had some old silent movie versions of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in there as well. Very good footage. We won't do any old silent movies because Sarah won't let me.
We will one of these days. I just trying to go through as many of old ones originally.
She's just finding excuses not to do the movies.
No, I am not. Don't believe this man. He's lying. Just like he lied about other things.
Would you buy used calf this man?
No.
Okay, right.
So, anyway, thanks for listening to Slash Podcast, everyone. So, this is Sarah Stephenson.
And Margle.
Saying we'll see you guys for our next podcast. See you guys around.
Bye, guys.